Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. How's everybody doing today? You know, I gotta say, I've mentioned before, Shab's been like kicking the shit out of me, right? And, you know, I really get what Loki was saying to Shadow about, you know, prison and American Gods. It's like, you know, there's a certain comfort, like relief. You ain't gotta worry about tomorrow, what tomorrow's gonna bring, because yesterday already brought it. Yeah, starting to freak out about the job thing, but talked to a very good friend of mine who works for unemployment to figure out if that is a possibility, if I can't find a new job while waiting for one prospect I'm actually pretty excited about to come through after all the holidays, and turns out I should be able to claim. It's probably gonna be a little light, but at least we'll have something coming in while figuring stuff out, so I'm feeling better about that. Probably get an unemployment deferment on my student loans. That'd be hype. But, in any case, we're still holding strong. You know, getting a little worried as more and more leads kind of don't pan out. But, hey, there's a ton of jobs out there. I'm sure I can figure something out. But, let's move on to gaming-related things, which I'll come here for. All 9 of you. I love each and every one of you. So, head judging for this IQ. And I mean, I get it. To anybody who's done anything bigger than that, it probably seems like a very low-level achievement. But for me, it's a pretty big fucking deal. It's kind of odd circumstances that led to it. So Kreiner usually is our L2 for the IQs at the shop, because he's the L2 for the area that does pretty much all this kind of stuff. And I floor judged a few with him as head judge. I was doing okay, you know, getting along. I was figuring it out. Well, he was supposed to have a commitment for Eternal Weekend out in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh, maybe Philly, I don't know. Some city within my state. But we knew about this. Like, we knew about this long ago. And boss was just going to have me and Judge do it, and Kreiner brought up the concern that Judge and I both don't really judge much at competitive. So, it might be better to get somebody in there that was more familiar with the IPG. We all thought Cody. Like, Cody really should be an L2. It's kind of a travesty that he's not at this point, because he has made the effort. It's just like every time he's supposed to sit the test, something blows up and he ends up not being able to do it. But like, he's checked all the boxes. Like, there's things you have to do to even be eligible to sit the L2 test. So, he's an excellent judge. Good buddy of mine. So I reach out and I'm like, hey, is this the thing you'd be interested in? He's like, yeah, sounds fine. Well, then there were some changes in his life. This lady in this car behind me is either also recording a podcast where she is very angry, or talking with somebody on her Bluetooth, or believes she has a passenger that she does not. Take your pick of what's going on there. It's much what I imagine I look like when I'm recording this. So, that's pretty amusing to me. Anyway. Circumstances in Cody's life changed. And this ended up not being a good weekend for him. But again, we knew a bit ahead of time. I let boss know. And I don't know, I guess, we had heard that Kreiner's plans had fallen through. So I don't know if, like, there was an assumption that he would do it. I mean, I'll admit I kind of assumed that if he wasn't doing Eternal Weekend, he would just come work the event. And hopefully my cards arrive today to finish out my Modern Storm deck. Thank you, Storm God, Caleb Shear. It's the list I'm running. Boo stole my Humans deck. And I don't know, just not loving playing Burn. And I figure Storm's like Mega Burn, right? Like, that's how that works. Plus, it's pretty low in the meta right now, so it was pretty cheap to acquire. I was going to do Grixis Shadow, and then, John Holland had to go all make that deck horribly expensive. Actually, I'm not sure anything really spiked after his Atlanta win. If it didn't, it probably should have, because damn, did that guy do well. Like, this is actually a pretty amazing performance from a deck that had kind of fallen off the meta. And I'm sure, like, I don't want to attribute it all to the deck, of course. I actually got to watch some of his matches on coverage, and dude was definitely an expert pilot, so. But, yeah, Grixis Shadow, like, I just needed too many money cards for it. So, decided to go with Storm. And I have a few buddies who are Storm aficionados. So I'd posted on Facebook asking, who wants to teach me Modern Storm. And MacGyver offered to bring his Storm deck to the IQ, deck list and sideboard guide and everything, and let me borrow it in case I got to play. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool in case I get to play. And Kreiner is actually the one who replied and was like, did they find another L2? Because if not, if you're not familiar, the Star City Games IQs require 2 levels of judges. So 1 L2 is fine as long as, you don't have too many players for that 1 L2 to manage. But if you have L1s, you need at least 2 of them. So I was like, oh, okay. So I hit up Boss and I was like, so yeah, about this IQ this weekend. Who's working with me? Am I a head judge? Am I a floor judge? What's going on? He was like, oh yeah, I gotta ask Judge. I'm like, oh, that's okay. So what you're saying is I should start reading the IPG now. Well, Judge couldn't do it. I reached out to Cody again just to verify everything still was as it was, and he was unable. He was. Yeah, Kreiner's on speed dial. Cody said he'd be around to take messages, like I can message him questions if I had them. Just neither one of them was willing/able to come actually judge the event. So it was like, oh shit, what do we do? Well, MacGyver just got recertified very recently. He was in L1 for a couple of years ago, and he had let his certification lapse, and took the tests on Judge Academy. He barely missed on his first go at it, and luckily the cooldown timer on it's only like 2 weeks now. It used to be like 3 months, I want to say. Because I remember being really annoyed about the thought of failing my L1 test, because I'm like, I don't know. I think another 3 months is, the hardcore studying is, I don't know. I may not be that dedicated. But luckily I passed it on the first shot. And I knew he had needed an L2 recommendation, and the last I talked to him, he hadn't gotten that yet. So I checked in with him, was like, hey, you interested in doing this? And he's like, oh, hells yeah. I'm like, awesome. Like, did you actually, get your cert, or are you still kind of pending? Because since you passed the test, I think we can kind of fudge it if we need to. He's like, oh, no, all good. Kreiner put in his rec. So, awesome. he is MacGyver because he is a locksmith by trade and, like, taught himself how to pick locks. So, that's some MacGyver-ass bullshit right there. So, everything actually went pretty well. I reread the IPG from the Judge Core app Friday night. That appears to be outdated. So, luckily, MacGyver and I, conferred about things, and I realized not all my information was 100% up to date. I mean, pretty close. Just some kind of recent changes. So, all in all, things went pretty well. A few warnings issued. I gotta say, the most interesting judge call. MacGyver took the initial call, and the player asked, hey, can I talk to you away from the table? So they come out to the end of the row, they talk quietly amongst themselves, and MacGyver's like, ugh, we're gonna have to kick this one to the head judge. Like, the concern was that his opponent's deck was marked. He's like, hey, just some of the cards, the sleeves are junked up and everything, and, it doesn't look like, like, he doesn't have Oko written on the back of the sleeve, but it's one of the cards that is kind of junked up. I happened to notice when he played it, it was an Oko, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a little sketch. So I go, walk over to the table and ask, hey, can I take a look at your deck? Because they had just finished up game 1, and we're, sideboarding and shuffling up for game 2. And I looked through it, and sure enough, like, there's some distinctive markings on different cards, but it looks like general, sleeve smuts, not like, again, it's not like the guy took a Sharpie and, drew little hearts on the back of the good cards. So, intentional didn't seem likely to me, because not every quote-unquote marked card was a good card. So, but, it is a concern. There were very identifiable, just pieces of grime on the back of the deck, but, like, it's not like, oh, okay, a bunch of them have this kind of, gunk right in this area, and they were kind of all over. And, I could pick them out, laying face down. And if I can pick them out, that's a pretty good indication it's a problem. So I'm like, alright, so your deck is marked. And he's like, whoa. And I'm like, okay, nobody's accusing you of cheating, man. Like, it looks like general sleeve wear and that kind of thing, but the problem is it is very discernible between certain cards. Do you have any spare sleeves on you? Because if he did, okay, we can take a look, see how many sleeves he has, see how many cards we're looking at that need re-sleeved, see if this is, a thing that can be accommodated. He's like, nope. I don't know, it's just like kind of the way he shut it down. I was like, okay. So I had a MacGyver grab a pack of cheap sleeves, have him take it off my credit at the shop, and I'm like, here, just re-sleeve the deck. You can continue playing. The table behind you is empty, so if you want to turn around to that empty table to re-sleeve so that your opponent's not seeing what's in your deck and everything, that's totally cool. Well, let's just get this done. I offered to help him, and he's like, no, that's cool. And I'm like, okay. Alright, so I go to his opponent, to get their match slip and mark down the warning and everything. And I assure his opponent, I'm like, you'll get a time extension for whatever time this takes. And I thought he was in earshot for that, but maybe not. So 20 minutes later, he finishes re-sleeving his deck. And I've been keeping an eye on him, And he goes to turn around, so I walk back over, and I'm like, can I see your match slip? And he's like, well, you already marked the warning. And I'm like, yeah, but, you have a 20-minute time extension now, should you need it, to finish out your match. And he's like, 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it took you 20 minutes to re-sleeve the deck. It's fine. We got this. We're good. Just please try to make sure that you're playing at a reasonable pace, and we'll roll with it. He ended up losing that round and dropping and leaving. And the guy who had called the judge, his opponent, looked like a carload of people from upstate Maryland, and a couple of them made the top 8, so he was just kind of hanging around. So once we got the top 8 all settled, which, that was fun, I, announced the pairings and everything, and I didn't make them sit at tables 1 through 4, I didn't cut the match slips, because, it's 4 matches, we can handle this. So they all find their partners, they sit, or their opponents, and they sit down, and everybody's just kind of staring at me, and I'm like, what's up? What did I do? They're like, we need to know who the top seed in every match is. I'm like, oh god, yeah, that's right. I'm like, my bad. I've never fired a top 8 before, so, it's just my mistake, and I announced them all out, and the one guy is like, yeah, you probably shouldn't admit that. I'm like, yeah, well, here we are. He then told me, though, after his first match, one of our quarterfinals matches was Zokomir. So they played 2 games, and it took quite a while. So for a while, me and the other remaining competitors were, just kind of hanging out, waiting for that match to finish up. As guys like, hey, seriously, this is one of the best run IQs I've ever been at. You did great. You turned over the matches. You guys were just, awesome. Which, really made me feel good. Because, it's not like it's one of my locals who's like, yeah, Joey, you are something. It's this guy that may never play in an event I'm involved in judging. Again, he has really no benefit in feeding me false platitudes. And was just like, yeah, no, I think y'all did great. I'm like, that's really awesome to hear, man. Thanks so much. But during this kind of downtime with top 8 going on, the guy who had called MacGyver over concerning his opponent's deck, came over to me and he's like, hey, I'm real sorry about that. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Never be sorry for calling a judge. You were right. The cards were marked up in a very distinguishable manner, and therefore the sleeves had to be changed. That was just reality. I'm like, sorry it took so long. I offered to help him and he said no, and I didn't want to push. He seemed kind of frazzled, and I thought maybe he just wanted a little bit of time to, because it's always scary when a judge comes up to you and they're like, yeah, so your deck's marked and we need to do something about that. I don't think the guy was trying to cheat. Maybe I'm naive there, but if, he was foiled. And, honestly, if the guy was trying to cheat, he wasn't very good at it, because they were at a relatively low table. I guess high number table. For the stage of the tournament it was. There was, little to no chance either of them was making top 8. You know how it is. At F&M, people generally don't care so much about that stuff. And you get away with, your sleeves being junky and everything, and, it doesn't occur to you that when you're going to play a competitive, you need to re-sleeve and be concerned about this stuff. He's like, well, thanks so much for handling it, and I, totally appreciate it. I feel bad because it was an inconvenience. I was like, no, man, never ever apologize for calling a judge for a legitimate concern. Don't use judges to bully your opponents, but if you have a concern, absolutely call a judge. Worst that's going to happen is they're going to look at the situation and go, all right, man, I see what you're saying, but I think you might be off here. And still, it's no harm, no foul. It's our job. It's what we do. But MacGyver was an absolutely amazing floor judge to have. He was real helpful. He was great the whole day. It's nice working with him. I adore MacGyver. He's a very good pal of mine. most of my players, or most of the players in the community at the guild, I enjoy. There are, a couple that I'm like, I accept you, we just don't fit together well. But there's a handful that I view as, real friends and would definitely spend time with outside of the game, and MacGyver's one of them. So all in all, it was a really great, really enjoyable day. Unfortunately, because I had to stick around for the top 8, being the head judge, that meant Boo was in for a long time, except husband was totally cool enough to come out and pick her up, and he brought Bird and Girly McBabyface with him, so I got to hold Girly McBabyface while we were getting the top 8 rolling along. People got to see her. But all in all, it was a really great experience. I feel a bit more confident in my judge abilities. It sparked somewhat of a renewed interest in pursuing my L2. If I can get by maintaining an L2 certification by just doing this kind of stuff and not have to go to opens. Maybe GPs. I mean, I do feel a little bad for Boss. We only had like 36 players, and of course, since he had to have both MacGyver and I on staff, he paid both of us. And so he probably didn't make a whole lot off this event, but everybody seemed pretty happy. Everything seemed to roll along pretty well. It was a little, terrifying at first. Felt like a lot of responsibility, but it was a great crowd that came out to play. No real, problem players or anything. Like I said, just a handful of warnings we gave out. We did deck checks, randomly selected. Of course, the first set of deck checks we did, Boo's table was randomly selected. So I asked MacGyver to handle that, and I had told him from the beginning of the day that any call she's involved in, I would prefer if he handled. Now, they can still appeal, but just to limit any appearance of impropriety. So he did her deck, I did her opponent's, and oh my god. So I mentioned before, I'm not generally into foil decks. I'm not generally into foils in general. Man, is that a weird sentence? Do not try to kill me, truck. I'm watching you. Because they warp and they give me a headache. But, this Titan Shift deck almost completely foiled out. It was just a beautiful deck to see, honestly. And yeah, no, it was a good time. I think we did pretty well. Everybody seemed pretty happy. We actually only had a few rounds go to time. I was pretty impressed. Because, of course we had a few Orzhoko decks running around. But, no, it was a great time. I do need to study the IPG much more. I didn't like how many times I had to double check myself, and, maybe that's just my own, paranoia and insecurity. But I think I want to make a little cheat sheet to put in the front of my judge notebook with just the most often occurring issues and the like, shorthand for the resolution. Oh, wow. Husband already picked up the kids. Nice. But yeah, I think that would be good. I definitely should really go through some training modules on Judge Academy. It's just been really hard to find the time. My time's about to open up a bit. Provided the next place I land is a little more in range with what I spent 5 years doing at my last job. It was a lot. This is actually probably for the best that I'm moving on. A couple weeks ago, husband was trying to get me to just put in my 2 weeks notice and, kind of blitz trying to find something else, because, this job's been kind of wrecking me, so. Something about doors and windows, right? So tomorrow I'm going to go through the startup kind of, I guess, turn sequence I did with Epidemic Friday night for KDM, since now I got to see, like, the game from startup, and go through all the fun stuff that happened there. Probably every time I get an opportunity to go play KDM with him, I'll go through what we did in this campaign and everything, because seriously, I think it's a great game, partial nudity notwithstanding. Super fun, and I mean, do I enjoy it more because I'm, hanging out and playing it with Epidemic? Probably. But I think even without that influence, I would still think it's a, really fun, kind of deep game. So that's where we're at. Man, this one didn't take as long to go over as I thought it would. Suggestions for when you play at competitive REL. 1, make sure your sleeves are in order. It's probably best to play with a newer set of sleeves, not the ones you've been playing F&M with for the last 6 months. 2, triple check your deck list. Make sure your deck list is accurate, because nothing feels worse than a game lost because you wrote down the wrong number or something, or wrote down the wrong card name or whatever. 3, always don't try to hide things, I guess. Just never try to hide things, because if you're discovered doing stuff like that, that's a USC major and grounds for disqualification. Warnings are okay. Yeah, they're scary and everything, and they get marked down, they get kept in the system, but, it's just so we can track this stuff and just try to learn from it. Don't let it wreck you, don't let it tilt you. But, all that said, that's where we're at. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.